Hey y'all, Muddy Water Search and Recovery here. And today we're going to do our September 11th, 2001 memorial video and kind of share our thoughts on this.
Let's see. I don't even know where to begin. 20 years. Holy crap. All right. 2,977 people were killed that day. More than 6,000 were injured.
Okay. 265 people died on the four planes. 2,606 in the World Trade Center alone, and 125 at the Pentagon.
344 firefighters, 8 paramedics, 71 law enforcement, 55 military personnel at the Pentagon, 2,605 American citizens, 372 non-American citizens.
More than 1,100 people who worked, lived, or studied in the lower Manhattan at the time of the attack, they're diagnosed with cancer as a result of the exposure from the toxins from Ground Zero.
It has been reported that over 1,400 9/11 rescue workers who responded to the scene in the days and months after the attack have since passed away.
And at least 10 pregnancies were lost due to 9/11.
I can't even fathom. I mean, 20 years.
In a lot of ways, it seems like it was yesterday.
You know, I remember where I was that day. I was asleep actually, and I'm actually divorced. And my ex-husband, who is in the military now, calls me, wakes me up, and he says, "Get out of bed and turn the TV on now." Well, half asleep, I wasn't really paying attention, and he said, "You need to get up and turn the TV on now." And just about the time I turned the TV on, the second plane hit. Sheer panic fell over me. I was terrified because my first thought was, this is it, we're done. Who would do something like this to us? And the other panic set in of my ex-husband getting deployed. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I would see him that night. I didn't know what would come of it. But since that happened, my ex-husband has been deployed 3 times, and because of this whole thing. And like I said, it's heartbreaking still.
Remembering back to that day, I was in my 8th grade algebra class. We were in the middle of a test, if I recall correctly. And one of the teachers came running into the classroom saying, "Turn on the TV, turn on the TV, the tower's been hit." So of course, us being 12, 13, 14-year-olds, like, what are you talking about? They turned the TVs on, and we saw the explosion of the first tower, and instant, what's going on, panic, we didn't know what to do. And then a few minutes later, we saw the second building get hit, and that, for me, that's when my tears started, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I was scared. I was heartbroken for what had happened. It was just...
You're almost in a state of shock.
Yeah.
You can't look away. You got to see what happens next.
That whole day was just a standstill at school, and then they released us early that day, and it was horrible. It's not something I want to, me personally, but everyone, none of us want to relive that again.
I was in Kansas City. I was working with the brick mason that I laid brick for many years. And we were off of Berry Road, and we were in the flight pattern of airplanes as they would come in and take off from KCI Airport. And the first thing we noticed was we went from a plane every 30 seconds or so to nothing. And some of the drywallers inside had a radio going, and the guy I worked for was my cousin Daryl. He could hear some of the radio. Well, he just disappears into the house. I didn't know where he went, what he was doing, but he finally come out and told me I needed to get in here and listen to this. And we heard it on the radio. And at that point in time, they're still missing airplanes. There was one expected to be flying over Kansas City. So at this point, we're all out in the yard looking around for this plane, and obviously we didn't see any. But we went ahead and cleaned the mixer out and went home. And it was the church I went to at the time. We didn't watch television, so it was at least a month afterwards before I actually saw footage of it. Part of me wishes I wouldn't have watched it, but yeah, that's where we were in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's one of those, you don't know what's going to happen after that. You know, this has just happened. What's tomorrow going to be like? What's the next day going to be like? And obviously, if you remember back, that's all the TV did was talk about what had happened for days and days and days and days on end. And like I said, it was panic and worry set in with me because something told me that my ex at the time, my ex-husband, was going to leave. And I was terrified.
So, out of everything with 9/11, what is the one thing that still stands out to you today?
Everybody that was killed in it, all those innocent lives, they can't come back. You know, a lot of people lost husbands and wives and brothers and sisters and so on and so on. And the memorial that they have at Ground Zero now, it's amazing, but to me, it's still not enough for all those people that were killed.
Megan, what's the one thing that sticks out to you?
Well, the image that I cannot get out of my mind, even 20 years later, I can still see it, was seeing firsthand the second tower get hit and it just exploding, and just knowing that this is it for these people. There was no way for them to get out. Just, it was torture. It shouldn't have happened. It was just horrible.
I can still see, I mean, if you followed it like I did, they showed pictures afterwards and video. There was quite a few people that knew they weren't going to make it, that were up in those towers. They had no choice but to jump from those windows, knowing that they were going to die anyway. But they needed to get out of there. And that's another thing that will always live with me, is the fact that these poor people thought it was easier to just jump out that window than deal with what had just happened.
See, I did know two people that were in the World Trade Center that day, and unfortunately neither one of them made it out. And I know of 6 others that I knew in passing, basically, that were supposed to be there, but one of them, his alarm didn't go off. Somebody else, the ride didn't show up. There was just reason after reason that these individuals did not make it into to that area that day, and thankfully they are still here. But I'm going to go a different route with this. the thing that stands out to me, as bad as 9/11 was 9/12, the day there was no strangers in America. You were hugging people you didn't know just because they were safe and alive, were there. Everybody was family that day.
I miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that we don't have anymore. Absolutely. That does not exist anymore.
And I seen a picture on Facebook that shows a fire truck going across the bridge, and in the distance you see the towers. That is the last photograph of those firefighters on that truck because they did not make it out of there.
Weren't they the first ones at the scene? I
It
mean,
is.
it's such an iconic picture, folks, that I'm sure that you can Google it. But the towers are in the background, and you see the bridge, and you see the fire truck. And it's got a big circle around the fire truck. They were the first ones to respond or to show up to the scene. None of them made it up.
Just knowing that going in, they pretty much knew they weren't going to make it out, but they went anyway because they
Yeah.
had to. And it's just the sacrifices that everybody made. It's just remarkable.
And you hear from some of the survivors as they were coming down the stairs in the building before the collapse, the firefighters rushing past them to get up to try to help these people, and knowing, it's almost certain death, and not caring, we got to help somebody, we got to go, and they're going to do that. And 20 years, I think it's up to all of us to let's get back to 9/12, how it was on 9/12. We see it anytime there's a disaster anywhere in America. People pour out of the woodworks to help strangers, clean up, make sure they got food, they got water, shelter. We need to get back to that. If we could get back to that, our missing cases are going to drop too. And it was just to be on the day after such a dark day here, it was amazing to be alive on September 12th and to witness that.
This is something that obviously is in history books now. Excuse me. And something my kids are learning about now. I have teenagers and they know of September 11th, but they don't know to what degree like the three of us do. And to see my daughter's reaction to certain pictures, to certain stories, to certain videos, just blows my mind because they have the same reaction I did. Just utter, I can't even explain the feeling. It's just sadness. And it was so unnecessary. And it is something that, like I said, 20 years later, yeah, nothing's changed. I still feel the same way. I literally hate this day. I do. I dread it every year. Because I have to see those memories on TV and I have to see them on, YouTube or Facebook or whatever. But it just amazes me how many people are still putting up memorials or they'll put something on their page or whatnot. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, it's on all of us to not forget our loss that day.
Yeah, it wasn't just the people that were there that lost something. It was the whole country that lost something that day. You either felt more proud to be an American or just, it's just very, very hard to think of what to say about it. I'm still speechless at times.
Yeah.
You try your best and just make it through the day.
And we want to send our thoughts and prayers out to the families who did lose a loved one on 9/11 and still carrying that burden. They are not forgotten. You are not forgotten. Anything else to add, Meg?
I'm speechless again. 20 years. Let's pray to God this never ever happens again.
And with that, let's never forget this day, the meaning behind the day, the losses, the sacrifices. Let's honor those, cherish your families. We don't know what tomorrow brings.
Hug them all a little tighter, guys. If you could, absolutely.
And with that, you guys stay safe, and we will see you down the road.